I'm Wykeman, the CFO of Allergy Therapeutics. There's a disclaimer here on slide 2. Slide 3 gives a good overall summary of our business. I apologise to you who've seen the presentation before, but this just gives a good, in a nutshell, about the allergy business. Allergy Therapeutics, as the name suggests, is an allergy business. Now, allergy as a whole, the market, is worth probably about $12 billion. Most of it relates to people who suffer mild symptoms, in which case they probably receive some type of over-the-counter treatment, corticosteroid, or something of that type. However, there's about 10% of the market which are patients who suffer moderate to severe, and that means they really can't work properly, they can't sleep, they can't go outside in the summer and so on. And those are the patients that we mostly focus on. Our unique selling point as far as our business is concerned, and what we drive for with all our products, is to design products that create ultra short course or short course treatment. And that is significantly faster treatment than our competitors. So if we talk about, for instance, one of the major platforms we have, which is the Pollenex Quattro platform, that's 4 to 6 injections. And if you compare that to the other competitors in the European market, they're on 12 to 15 injections to treat a patient. Or if we talk in the US, we're talking 50 to 100 injections. And I'll come on to talk about the US market. We also focus on actually trying to cure the patients rather than treat the symptoms. So in other words, that after treatment of 2 or 3 years in a row, those patients should be in a position where they don't need to have any further treatment for potentially maybe up to 20 years. We're headquartered in Worthing in Sussex. We have a large manufacturing facility there. We have a second manufacturing facility just outside Madrid. The business itself is made up of a trading business as well as research and development. And over the last 22 years since we spun out of GSK, we've grown at a compound 9% per year. We're listed on the AIM market with the ticker of AGY. So just to move on to our business and strategy. Many of you will have seen this slide before. We really have 3 pillars to our strategy. The first pillar is the European business. As I mentioned, we have a trading business. We sell quite a lot of product in Europe, about 80 million pounds a year in sales, and it's a very well established business. The second pillar of our strategy is the pipeline. Now, quite a few of the products we sell in Europe, we sell on a named patient basis, and we are busy in bringing some of those products from a named patient basis to an market-approved position. As well as that, in the pipeline, we've got a peanut product, which I'll come on to talk about, and we've also recently licensed a virus-like particle candidates to move outside of the allergy space, and I'll talk about that as well. And the third pillar of our strategy is US market. It's a massive potential market. It's poorly served at the moment, and there's a great opportunity with our business. So talking about Europe first, on the left-hand side, you'll see the diagram of our sales across Europe. As you can see, Germany is the key market. That's the biggest immunotherapy market in Europe, and 61% of our sales come from there. And then the rest across most of the rest of Europe, as you'll see, Spain and Italy are the 2 biggest markets for us after that. And on the right hand, you'll see that diagram that shows the pie chart that shows the sales, and actually every product apart from the pale blue turquoisey product on the left hand side, which is oral vac, they're all injectable products. So we tend to specialize in the injectable products, because of the short treatment time, which I talked about earlier. We do have one or two historical oral treatment products. This year we had growth of 7% at constant rates. I talk about constant rates because 95% of our sales are in continental Europe. Therefore, we get a lot of revenue in euros. If we look at what the impact of COVID has been this year, it hit us in our financial fourth quarter, the period from March to June. The impact was bigger in Southern Europe than Northern Europe, because in Northern Europe, most of the clinics that we supply are outside of hospitals. So one, they had a shorter lockdown period, and secondly, they weren't inside hospitals, so they could reopen. Whereas in Southern Europe, particularly Spain and Italy, a lot of those clinics are actually inside hospitals, and therefore access has been more difficult. But we had a very rapid response, first of all, to ensure the safety of our staff. Secondly, to secure the business, and I'll come on to talk about the financial results, and also to secure our relationship with the doctors, nurses, and also patients, providing all sorts of advice and help where we could. In order, as I mentioned, that we had a certain impact of the COVID on our sales. It's estimated to be about 2% of the growth that we could potentially have had, we lost due to the COVID impact. We had focused cost efficiencies to make good that shortfall in the sales. So overall, we had a very strong performance. We had a good performance from our supply chain. That's one of our critical successes of our business over time, is the supply chain, which has been highly robust. And we further strengthened our portfolio, and I'll come on to talk about that in a minute. And you'll see the graph below over the last 22 years, impressive growth. So one thing that we've done this year is to license a product called Immunobond. And this product is actually an over-the-counter product, and it's been developed by Vienna University. So this is based on the research which has shown those people who are brought up or live close to farms with livestock have a much lower incidence of allergy. So the Vienna University have done a lot of research and found out that this relates to raw milk and also certain dust and other things that you get in a stable environment. So they've done further research and created an oral product which is based on the raw milk protein without the obvious side effects. I mean, obviously, one of the reasons that you don't tend to drink raw milk is the danger of bacteria. But with this product, it's got the benefits without the potential downsides. And I should also mention that this product is unlike any of our other products in the sense of it covers broadly across allergy. So there's evidence that it can be used to treat all sorts of allergies, from grass through birch and other allergies such as house dust mite. Moving on to the pipeline. The pipeline we've got is quite deep and broad. Of the products that are not approved so far, the block of green in the middle there are the Pollenex Quattro products, which, as I say, we are selling them in Europe on a named patient basis, but we're in the process of bringing the grass product through to phase 3 trials. We have certain other products such as the house dust mite and so on that we're working on, and I'll talk later also about the peanut, which is in the early stage of development. So moving on to the grass product, we're about to start an exploratory field trial with what's called the G309 trial, which will be about 150 patients to trial certain types of dosing and the variety of protocols. This trial will read out in the autumn of next year, and following that we'll go into a phase 3 efficacy trial. So that would be a large field trial which will have of the order of 1,000 patients. Both the G309 trial and the G306 trial are fully funded. And by the way, the G309 trial, we've obviously had the protocols agreed by the regulatory authorities. So if we are successful with the main field trial, which starts in 2022, we'll only have the completion of our safety database before we'll be able to file for the US. So that's a really important trial for us, the second field trial. But it also will open the way for the introduction of various other products. So we have products in development such as the ragweed and the birch, which we could also bring through this process to potentially get approval for the US. Moving on to the peanut. Now the peanut is in an early stage of development. So we've done quite a lot of preclinical testing, which has been highly successful. And in previous presentations, I've talked about the results from that. The process we've got to now is we've done a successful scale up, and we're going to start with an in-human trial starting in the second half of 2021. But before that, in the spring of next year, 2021, we're already going to do some testing in human cells. So that's not actually physically within the body, but testing with human cells the impact of the product. Now, this is a very exciting product because potentially it may have the ability, for instance, with 3 injections to provide some sort of protection for those people who suffer from peanut allergy. Peanut allergy is an area where the market is very, very new. There is one product which has recently been approved in the US by a company called Immune. The Immune company has recently been bought by Nestle for 2.8 billion. So there's a lot of interest in the peanut market and a lot of potential. And we estimate that the global market for peanut could be worth something like £8 billion. So it's a big opportunity. And then moving on to something that we announced a couple of weeks ago, which is to extend the pipeline even further. And that is we've invested in licensing of further virus-like particle candidates. So the peanut product that we've got uses this virus-like particle technology for the injection. And the reason for that is that peanut is a very virulent allergy, and using the method that we use for grass and tree treatment, which is the Pollex Quattro, would not be possible. So we've gone another route, and basically it's to trick the body into thinking it's receiving a virus, and the body behaves in a very different way, breaking it down and learning how to deal with the peanut. So we've now taken on a license for further candidates, and those candidates are in areas such as solid state cancer and asthma and so on. It does also give us the advantage. We've already, as you can imagine, with the development of the peanut, we've done a lot of work with virus-like particles, and therefore we can apply the knowledge we've learned about dealing with virus-like particles and the scale-up and things like that into these new products. They're obviously vaccines as well in the immunology space, and they use adjuvant systems, which we also use in our other products, the Pollex Quattro products. So it's a natural progression for us, and it's moving to the broader immunology field from just within allergy. So there's lots of potential there. As far as the long term is concerned, obviously some of those products, such as the product for potentially for melanoma, we would probably look to partner at a certain stage because we don't have any sales team, and also the sheer cost of doing phase 3 developments are very expensive. However, for some of the other products, we might well take through ourselves, depending on their applicability to our sales team. So at the moment, we're going through a preclinical evaluation. There's a certain amount of work that needs to be done, and then the future is to look forward to doing some type of clinical development, and as I've said, looking for partnering opportunities for some of the candidates. Now moving on to the US, As I mentioned, this is a huge potential. The market is probably worth about $2 billion. It's currently serviced by bulk manufacturers who produce bulk allergy, so bulk liquids of, say, for instance, birch or grass or whatever. They sell them to allergists who then dilute those down and inject patients. So all the dilution and making up of the injections is done in local clinics rather than in a properly controlled manufacturing facility. Using this method, because it is quite an old method, requires a lot of injections. So as I mentioned before, this could be between 50 and 100 injections. So that can take from 3 to 5 years. So as you can imagine, there's a very significant drop-off of patients, with only 16% of patients actually finishing their course. So there's lots of potential here for a GMP manufactured, fully approved product for the US market. And just quickly to move on to our summary and outlook. First of all, just the financial position. As I mentioned, we reported our results just about a week ago. Our sales were up 7% in constant terms and 6% in actual terms to 78 million. That's the trading part of the business. And our operating profit pre-R&D was up 25% to 14.2 million. So that's a reflection of the trading, the first pillar that I talked about in our strategy. This year, our net profit increased, doubled to 7.1 million. The question of whether we make a profit or a loss for the year tends to depend a bit on the amount that we're investing in research and development. And we have made it clear in our outlook statements of our press release for the preliminaries that next year we'll probably be spending another 70% on research and development as we start that GRASS trial. We did receive a one-off legal expense settlement of 3.2 million, and we finished the year with a very strong cash balance of 37 million pounds. That's enough to fund the 2 GRASS trials that I talked to you about and the initial peanut phase 1 trial. I've talked also on the left-hand side the various developments in the operating side in the sense of the further investment in VLP technology to move us into the broader immunology area, particularly in oncology. As I mentioned, the GRASS exploratory trial, which will start recruitment in the next couple of weeks. And finally, the strengthening of the portfolio with the licensing of the Immunobond product. So 2021, there's an awful lot to look forward to, as I mentioned, with the start of the GRASS trial, with the start of the peanut trials, both the human cell and the actual trial, and the launch of Immunobond, which will be launched in January of next year in Germany and Austria, with a potential launch across the rest of Europe coming after that. And this is a good summary to show you where we are as far as the key milestones are concerned. As I mentioned, the GRASS, the stage 1 exploratory is starting shortly and will read out in the autumn of next year, probably around October, November time. The Immunobond product, which will get launched in the first quarter of 2021, as well as at the same time we'll have the human cell trial for the peanut. Then in the second half of 2021, we'll be undertaking the first in-human phase 1 trial for the peanut. And in the second half of 2022, we'll be starting the field trial, the main field trial for the GRASS. That's the PQ product, the GRASS Marta product.
Okay, first up, is it still the case that most of your EU sales of older, more established products are sold through managed access programs or on a named patient basis? If so, what percentage of your sales come through this route?
Probably, I'd say probably about 35 or 40% of the sales are the older approved products, and the rest are are named patient products. So they're the Polynex Quattro products and so on.
Would you be able to continue sales through named patient basis indefinitely if you chose to do so, or would there be a risk that regulatory agencies would insist that you support the products with new randomized placebo-controlled trials and new market license authorizations?
No, we can't continue to sell. Well, so perhaps I should talk first about the German market. Well, just to explain to everybody, in 2012, the new EU legislation led to a lot of these named patient products being taken through a process where companies have to go through a series of trials to show certain levels of efficacy and so on. Now, the first country that actually followed this process is Germany, and that's because they are the leading country for immunology. And this process, which is called the TAV process in Germany, that is happening at the moment, and the trial we're doing for GRAS is not only for the US but also to get through this process in Germany. So the German process will come to the end towards the end of 2026. So by then, all the products that are sold on named patient basis, that is material products, because there are some small products that fall outside, will have to have got approval or will have to be removed from the market. For the rest of Europe, although technically they're covered by the EU legislation, each of the countries they've been slower actually to come to a process, and there are also ongoing discussions as to what requirements they will have.
Okay, it leads us on quite nicely. Do Germans have more allergies than anyone else? What explains the reason it's such a disproportionately large market for allergy therapeutics?
No, they don't. I think to be honest, the key driver is the funding for healthcare. So in other words, in Germany, there's quite high funding for healthcare. So there's a lot of payment for doctors and particularly specialists and allergists. So if I give you an indication, in Germany, there's something like 5,000 specialist allergists who will treat patients. And if I compare that to, say, for instance, the UK, which has quite a small immunology treatment area, there are probably something like 12 specialists. So it's really a question of how the markets have grown. Germany still, due to its population, has got slightly higher levels of allergy, but certainly the UK and France, in terms of the number of people suffering from allergies, are pretty close behind.
A question about the shareholder base. Who owns the shares? Institutions? What's the composition of the register look like?
Right. The largest shareholder is actually Abbott Laboratories, who own 38%. So they inherited that. They purchased the business that had originally invested in us, and so they acquired the shares. They're supportive, but they're not a long-term investor. And then we have two other major investors. There's a company called investment fund called Southern Fox, which come from South America. And they invested quite early on as well, and they own about 23%. And then there's a Chinese investment fund called ZQ, which it's Hong Kong based, which owns about 20%. And then after that, River and Mercantile own, I think, about 6%, something like that. And then a variety of other funds and private investors.
We are out of time, so it's the last question, and if I could ask you also to be concise if you can on your answer about Immunobond and clinical data to support the claims for the product. Are you relying on consumer perception? And the same question, I think, but slightly differently. Will it have an EFSA approved anti-allergy health claim?
To start with, it's going to be a pure nutraceutical, but over time we've already carried out some trials, but not a double-blind placebo trial. But that will be the next stage. I mean, we have trials there, as I say, they're not fully controlled in like a normal clinical trial that shows a 60% reduction in allergy for mite sufferers, but we need to do further work on that. But obviously, we'll start with the over-the-counter cells, and at some stage, it will work up to a proper medical claim based on proper clinical data.
Lovely. Nick, thank you very much indeed for joining us this evening.